Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo. Today we'll have another great program with Dr. Bina Joe. Now I'd like to ask Keith Burwell to come to the podium to deliver a reflection, and then ask Matt Bell to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Our reflection for today, I'm going to give you 4 quotes and then a nice meditation. Let's start with this. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if only one remembers to turn on the light. That is from Harry Potter. Promise me you'll always remember you're braver than you believe, you're stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Christopher Robin to Winnie the Pooh. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. St. Francis of Assisi. To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. Oscar Wilde, from An Ideal Husband. And if you're going through hell, by all means, keep going. Winston Churchill. Almighty, may we discover through pain and torment the strength to live with grace and humor. May we discover through doubt and anguish the strength to live with dignity and holiness. May we discover through suffering and fear the strength to move forward towards healing. May it come to pass that we be restored to health and to vigor. May life grant us wellness of body, spirit, and mind. And if this cannot be so, may we find in this transformation and passage moments of meaning and opportunity for love, and the deep and gracious calm that comes when we allow ourselves to move on in love. Amen.
Amen. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Keith and Matt. As we begin today's meeting, I'd like to thank and acknowledge this month's sponsor, Connect Toledo Downtown Development Corporation. I'd like to ask greeter Tom Wright to come to the microphone to introduce today's visiting Rotarians.
President Dick, we have 2 visiting Rotarians today. Visiting Rotarians, please stand as I read your name and remain standing until President Dick welcomes you. Michelle Free is from the Maumee affiliate, and she's the president of the Maumee branch. Ken Robinson from Perrysburg. He's an associate with the American Red Cross.
Right up here. Michelle and Ken, welcome. Great to have you here. Does anyone have any guests they would like to introduce to our group? If so, would you please go to the floor mic with your guest so we can see you both and hear you clearly.
President Richard, my guest today is Anne Fran, and she's the Director of Nursing at St. Charles.
Welcome, Anne. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. President Dick, this is Phyllis Barnes. She was following us on Facebook and decided she wanted to come after learning about the Children Coalition Against Hunger. So we're happy to have her here today.
Wonderful. Phyllis, nice to have you here.
Mr. President, I want to introduce my beautiful wife once again, Dr. Claudine Whitfield.
Nice to have you here as always. Welcome all. I'd now like to ask Scott Hinshaw to go to the floor mic to tell us about the Community Services Committee Kids Coalition Against Hunger Food Pack.
Thank you, President Dick. We had a great day on Saturday, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out on behalf of the Community Service Committee and the Membership Engagement Committee. Everyone worked really hard for the Kids Coalition Against Hunger Food Pack that we did. We had about 100 people turn out for the event, and it was really great. We need to thank several different people and groups. President Dick, of course, thank you for your support. Past District Governor Deb Cheney was there, and she brought several individuals. Waterville Rotary was involved, Allison Fry of Perrysburg Rotary, Michelle Free of Mommy Rotary, of course, in Mommy's group, Shelley Clapp of Mommy Rotaract, Anthony Wayne Interact Club, we had some guys from, some kids from there, Kevin Miller of the Ottawa Hills Schools, of course, who gave us the space and also was out that day. Chuck Mann was our DJ, he did a great job, and of course, nothing around here gets done without the illustrious Kathy Tate and Katie Hahn as well. So I want to thank everybody for their hard work. And here it is, the final count. We packed 47,952 meals. About 21,600 of those meals went to the Toledo Northwestern Ohio Food Bank. And thank you again for everybody's help.
If you participated on Saturday, would you please stand up and we'll show our appreciation for that, please. Thank you all. It was a great event. Thanks to Scott for really getting that put together, and look forward to doing it again next year. And once again, it's great to collaborate with other Rotary clubs in the area because that's really what it's all about. Now I'd like to ask Ford Bennett, who is ready and waiting, to tell us more about the Mesa Toledo bonus ride.
Thank you, sir, and good afternoon, everyone. So we are 7 short weeks away from the second annual Toledo bonus ride for Mesa. I highly encourage you to sign up on our website. A link was emailed out by our Mesa affiliates. Remember, the grand prize for the person who raises the most money is a custom jersey, custom cycling jersey. So 7 short weeks away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ford. Now would be a great time to check into social media to let everybody know you're at the Toledo Rotary Club, and then I ask that you please silence your phones for the rest of today's program. I want to again recognize our Black Tie Affair sponsors. They should be coming up on the screen. The presenting sponsors are Emma Steria and ID Properties. The major sponsors, Marquis, Lamar, Two Scale, Spengler-Nathanson, Thread Marketing, and Cumulus. And the supporting sponsors, Commerce Paper, Toledo Ticket, and Silverback Supply. And now, to talk more about the Black Tie Affair and some other things, I'd like to invite Executive Director Kathy Tate to the podium.
I promised Walt I'd use the step stool today. He says I'm too short. So thanks, everyone. A couple of announcements. Hold on, I lost my place, so I have to remember. So I want to reference the Spoke newsletter that went out last Thursday, as well as your email that went out this morning. We're really asking everyone to update any of your information that is in our database. So hold on, I have to remember this too. Okay, so this was the newsletter page, and I don't have a pointer, but at the lower right, that blue box in the newsletter, if you were to go there, that would be where you would, if your email has changed anything, that's where you would update it. And then if you went directly to the website, the home page over the fourth one on the right is for your membership forms, and you can go in there. The reason is, and this is what I really want to announce, is that this year we're going to change the roster and make it even better. I know a lot of us use the electronic, but we all use the paper version. And I attend a large club conference annually, and this is where I get to connect with other like-minded size clubs. There are only a few of us in the world that are this size, and this particular directory is from the Shreveport, Louisiana, and it's really kind of sweet, and it has tabs. Sorry, I always forget I'm doing double duty here. Looks like that, but and there will be opportunities for advertisement and so on. Like the back cover of this will be the oh, I'm going to get it wrong, Top Hat Valet Parking. Is that right, Jim? Sorry. So it's just going to be a really sweet tool. So there'll be tabs in it for the officers and committees, a little bit of the history, all the member pages, the club information, classifications, Constitution and bylaws, so that everything that you might need, that we think you might need, will be in this book, and we'll have it out by August 1st. So please update that, and then even if you go to our website today, on the front page, you'll find a link that you can just go directly and sign up to change your information. Sorry, not sign up. Okay, so here's what I really wanted to talk about. So Joe Napoli, we're going to roast him on June 15th. And he looks all suave and sophisticated in this picture. But this is a roast, so we're going to be able to find out what we don't know about Joe. So we have some intel, because we know people in Rotary. And I suspect that's Joe. We found out from a conversation we had that he may or may not wear that outfit. That is his office. Yep. So I just want to show you a few pictures that were captured and sent to us. You know, it could be Joe incognito. It could be muddy. We don't know. But the point is, we're inviting you to be sure to come to the Black Tie Affair on June 15th. You would have all received your invitation in the mail. You can also go to our website and sign up. And it'll be a fun night, and we are going to roast Joe. So you have to come to that to find out if he really wears that outfit. We also heard he has lots of popcorn machines in his office and hot dog machines. But we really didn't get those pictures. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I'd now like to invite our friend and Perrysburg Rotarian Ken Robinson to the podium to present a Paul Harris Fellow.
Thank you, President Dick, for your hospitality, inviting a wayward Perrysburg member to come to Toledo today. Job one is already taken care of. The step stool is safely back under the table. That was one of my assignments. My next assignment is to say a few nice things about Marvin Whitfield, which is not difficult. In fact, it's a great privilege for me to be able to do so. Marvin Whitfield is one of my leadership volunteers at the American Red Cross. He helps me and my team be better for our partners and our clients. He helps my team be more consistent in how they manage with others, to be more consistent about how they provide a high-quality volunteer experience. He is one of the finest minds I've ever come across in terms of helping chart strategic direction, to keep a focus where it needs to be on the team and on the client, and on maintaining an atmosphere of teamwork that's effective, collaborative, and helping me keep my organization as a learning organization. We understand that if we don't do that, we fail our client, we fail our volunteers. Marvin joined Rotary about a year ago. Because I was one email too slow, Marvin joined Toledo Rotary, much to my chagrin. It's all right. Good for you guys. I'll find another one for Perrysburg. There are few people that I can think about that I come across that demonstrate more the quality of person and character that I think 100 and change years ago Paul Harris tried to get in his circle. A person whose word is his bond, who has absolute integrity, who exists to serve others. He does things that I'm sure I don't even know about. His work with students, his work with my volunteers and staff, his work with the Wood County Sheriff's Auxiliary, the passion that he has to serve the community, and he keeps promises. The reason he's with the Red Cross is because a woman whose name I'm sure he's long forgotten made him promise once upon a time that he would go help with the Red Cross because she helped him by letting him know the Red Cross can do things at a scene. They can do things to make clients safer. And Marvin remembered that and followed through on that promise. So I'm very grateful to that one woman down south, I think in Mobile it may have been, and I'm very grateful to have Marvin as part of my team, and it's a real privilege to confer on him a Paul Harris Fellow this afternoon.
Thank you, Ken, and congratulations, Marvin. Now I'd like to invite Rotarian John Federke to the podium to introduce new member Jeff Anderson.
Thank you, President Dick. It is my pleasure to introduce Jeff Anderson, the new general manager at the Toledo Club. And I can tell you that I was on the search committee, and it was a real pleasure to get to know him, partly because he is a graduate of the finest hospitality school in the country, Michigan State University. Go Green.
Go white.
All right.
Go green.
Well, we'll go with Go Blue for you. When I was on the search committee, one of my tasks was to call the references that Jeff provided, and two of them were from Traverse City, where he is coming from, and one was the president of the Rotary Club there, and the other was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And they both said, you are getting a great community citizen, and that's why I'm particularly delighted that Jeff is joining Rotary. Before coming here, he worked in a club in Detroit whose name is so difficult to pronounce and spell that, well, it doesn't matter because we'll never belong to it anyway. There were 175 people whose names are mostly on cars or hotels or department stores in Detroit. And so he comes with a great pedigree there. Also the Traverse City Country Club, and then most recently Birchwood Farms. And if you're familiar with the Northern Michigan area, it's a 900 homeowner association. So he said that was more like being mayor of a small city. And so Toledo Club is, I think, a great place for him to arrive. His wife, Jackie, and he have been together for 24 years. They have a daughter, Carly, who is a flute player and a dancer, and a son, Brady, who is on the downhill ski team, and that's going to be a tough one for him to pursue here in Toledo. Jeff was president of the Traverse Bay Sunrise Rotary Club in their centennial year, and went to Osaka, Japan as part of that celebration. So he was a committed Rotarian in Michigan. He will be a committed Rotarian here. And just so you know, his pet peeve, he really gets steamed about parents who don't do a good job of raising their kids, and I think we can all agree with that. So let's welcome Jeff Anderson.
And now I'd like to have Rotarian Jim Scheib come to the podium to introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, President Dick. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I admire anyone who is associated with medicine, because the only thing I got out of pre-med was bad handwriting. Our speaker today is a distinguished university professor of physiology and pharmacology and the founding director of the Center for Hypertension and Precision Medicine, a spotlight area of unique distinction at the University of Toledo College of Medicine. She is a world-renowned scholar researching on the causes of hypertension, which I have, and I think many of us in this room have, which is a serious health problem affecting 62% of the human population. Dr. Joe's research centers on the genes in our body that we inherit from our parents that cause us to develop hypertension. But lately, she made a pioneering discovery that tiny microbes residing in our body also contribute to the development of this silent killer. She has won international level awards from the American Society of Hypertension and the American Heart Association. Her research has been funded at the University of Toledo's College of Medicine for the last 40 years, of which the past 15 years have been under her leadership. As well as being an Indian classical dance teacher, Dr. Joe and her husband have 2 children. Today I would like you to welcome Dr. Bina Joe, whose topic is Pressures from the Bugs Within.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for that really tall introduction that made me look much taller. Step stools help to make that difference up. Anyway, it's such a pleasure to be in front of you Rotarians here. In the last few minutes that I've been here, I'm capturing sound bites of how big this organization is, 35,000. President Dick, you should be so proud that you have such a group behind you, and it's my moment to connect with you for what we are doing in Toledo. Let's see if I can get this to work. It is on, it is working. Yep. Okay, as Jim mentioned, the university has several areas of unique excellence that has been identified by our new president. Not so new anymore, but she does wonderful stuff for us. And hypertension is one of those areas. What that means is we do some work that is appreciated by our colleagues in the university. For those of you who love MCO, which was our previous name, some of you always recognize us with MCO. This is our campus, and the arrow that says Block Health Science Building is where we are. Why am I showing this? A visual always helps for what we do, where we do, why we do. So let's have a little quiz here. What were the top 10 causes of death in the 19th century? How did we all vanish with diseases? What kinds of them? Anybody? Pardon me?
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis, good one. It's on the list. Meaning every single one that's listed there is caused by bugs, bacteria that are pathogens residing outside our bodies, right? What did research do? Today we don't have any of these as our top 10 list. We have something else. Can anybody now say at least what are the top 10 causes of illness in our species? Heart disease. Hypertension is a risk for it. Cancer. Two things come to mind. There it is. So the first two in red, heart disease and stroke and other cerebrovascular diseases. And then it's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's not cancer there. Cancer is down the list somewhere. But the point to make is we have good things happening with research. Whatever was the list previous is all gone, but we have things to do going forward. We have a new list. Now, if I may ask the audience, what is the number one risk factor for the two diseases listed there? You know it's in our title, right? Hypertension. So we are looking at the top risk factor for the top two diseases that's listed on our list of things to do to improve health on this planet. I cannot more emphasize how difficult it is to work on this, but how important it is to work on this as a risk factor to eradicate it. So let's see. Hypertension, as we all said, is a number one risk factor for very bad diseases. And you all said cancer as number two. Actually, cancer is number two in killing us for many, many, many years now. But cardiovascular diseases, especially risk factor is hypertension, still tops it. You know, good for research to go on, but very bad for us as a species. What is hypertension? It's just the pressure with which blood flows in our arteries. Physicians, just forgive me for this real layman's description. Now, if something clogs those blood vessels, or something happens to the structure of those blood vessels, or something happens to the pump that pumps at the heart, you get very high pressure, and it can blow off those vessels, right? So that's the stroke if it happens in your head, brain, and if it stops your functionality of your bodily, if your vital organs, that is what you end up with, kidney disease or heart disease. Recently, in a trial, which was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, they did this test for, well, how should we control blood pressure? What if the numbers are a little higher? When you age, you get, higher blood pressure. Is that okay? Well, the results were very clear to say it wasn't okay. It's very important to control it at 120 by 80 as systolic by diastolic. Any more than that, there's a high risk for mortality. It doesn't matter your age. So we pay attention to this new guideline. Anything above 120 millimeters of mercury, which is the pressure at which the heart pumps blood into your arteries, that is 120 and above, it is already elevated blood pressure. We need to control it. How many of us are sick? About 64% in Ohio. 62 is national level. 64% in Ohio are hypertensive per the new guidelines. So I was talking to you about the circulatory system. You can have a visual here, what's going on in blood flowing through those vessels there. We get heart disease, we get stroke, and we get kidney failure. So we don't die of hypertension. we die of the end-stage problems, okay? Why is it that medicines don't work? They don't cure hypertension. We don't know how it develops. As we age, it just develops, and we accept it as a fact of life. And the current medicines are focused on these very organs that they affect in the end. For example, they're focused on the heart, the kidney, the blood vessels, and perhaps the brain. All of the medicines we have are targeting these organs for improving their function. So once you have one drug plus a second class plus a third class of drug added on, physicians can't do much. And then there are people with resistant hypertension who don't respond to this combination of drugs. How many are they? This is per the old guidelines. The numbers are staggering. So other than getting out of these organs, we had no clue where to go for newer treatments. Well, we just found out in 2015 in a paper we published that we are totally focused on something that was very small picture of the whole picture. So just to back up a little bit, we as human beings are ecosystems. What do we mean by that? We have one organism, which is us, and what we inherit from our parents as genes. And then we have tiny microorganisms living inside of us that help us digest our food, keep going with our lives, etc. But these commensal bacteria are very, very, very important for our health. And that's the realization that's coming in every field that I look at for papers. Cancer, immunity, cardiovascular diseases, bugs are doing a lot. What we found is that bugs in your gut, bacteria in your gut, are important for maintaining your blood pressure. How did we do this? We took animals that we have in Toledo, which are hypertensive rats as models, and we studied their bacteria. We cleared their bacteria and looked at their blood pressure. We gave it bacteria from other rats and looked at their blood pressure. This all getting altered as we move the bugs around. So it was pretty important for us to know, and it was found here in Toledo. So this is the paper, landmark paper that we published. And this was picked up by the American Heart Association as big news, 2016 at their meeting. And we were awarded a nice grant, sizable grant last year to actually study this phenomenon of how they alter, the gut bacteria alter our blood pressure. Another story, well, antibiotics. Antibiotics also kill bacteria, right? We used antibiotics as the magic pills to eradicate all infectious diseases that we had on our list. But we didn't quite know that they would kill the bacteria within us and cause the second list, which is the second list of cardiovascular diseases that you saw. It's kind of eerie, right? It's chilling to see. So we have done some work in the in this antibiotics area, and that's my MD PhD student. She's published that antibiotics, some of them are good, some of them are not so good. Details are in the paper, but I have to warn you, it's only in models, in the rats that we have studied. So it is possible that physicians have to rethink use of antibiotics in hypertensives. So next quiz, what ingredient is used to make pickles that kill bacteria? It's not vinegar. So what is the second most important ingredient you use to make pickles? Salt. Thank you. Salt. So salt kills bacteria, right? But what does salt do to blood pressure? Everybody knows. Salt raises blood pressure. Honestly, not all of us are salt sensitive, yet physicians tell you to eat less salt so you may have a chance to keep your blood pressure at bay. So now we put these two together and asked, well, salt raises blood pressure, but salt also kills bacteria. Does it mean that salt is messing with our bacteria inside our gut to raise our blood pressure or lower our blood pressure? What is going on? So we did ask that question. Does salt raise blood pressure by killing bacteria in our gut? And our experiments show that yes, they do. And this was also, we actually were working parallelly with a group in Germany, and both of us came up with the same result, that salt lower lactobacilli in our gut. And what do lactobacilli do to blood pressure? We don't know. We have no idea. We just found, it's like Christopher Columbus finding land. We found that it does alter bacterial profiles. Not only that, when bacteria are altered, some of the body chemicals that we make are also altered. These chemicals are called metabolites. Some of the metabolites are made by bacteria when they eat and excrete into our bloodstream. We eat and metabolize our own diets. Both of these are floating around in our bloodstream. So now we are sorting for what do these bacteria make that influence our body chemicals. Okay. One of the chemicals we found is that high salt causes is it lowers a chemical called ketone. You might have heard about ketone diets, which are very popular. We actually did this experiment. We found that it lowers ketone, and that was our finding. And then we added this chemical back into the rat that was hypertensive, and its blood pressure was normalized. So what this means is ketone diets may be useful for lowering blood pressure. You all know that exercise helps hypertensives, right? Why does exercise improve somebody's blood pressure? Well, during exercise also you make ketone bodies. When you eat salt, you're depleting that ketone body, which is where the connection is. If you're eating a lot of salt and exercising, you're probably not doing any good because salt is lowering the very ketone bodies that exercise increases. So we are getting into those links for how all this is occurring and how bacteria are playing a role in all of this. Okay? We are very, very, very impressed with how the scientific community took this work. We were able to publish it in a major journal called Cell Reports. And we're working on this project with the idea that can we then help people whose blood pressure is uncontrolled. Remember those resistant hypertensives? By current medications, their blood pressure is not controlled. Is there an opportunity to use these metabolites? Is there an opportunity to alter their gut bacteria? Are questions we are addressing. And so we have a human study that we have just started where we need volunteers. If there's 62% affected, the rest unaffected, we need both groups to compare their gut bacteria to see what their profiles are. This work is being done by a few labs in the world, but in the US, we are one of the prominent ones working. So, fellow Rotarians of President Dick, please help us to get more subjects into our study. Okay. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, we have this fabulous rat model that we are working with. It's a hypertensive rat model that was developed in-house in Toledo. I came here to work with these animals. We hope to continue working with these rats to understand the mechanisms for how bacteria impact blood pressure. What we want to do next is to take it to a much higher level and ask the question, remember I told you our body is an ecosystem? In rats, we can deplete all the bacteria and ask the question, when bacteria don't exist in a rat's body, what is its blood pressure? And when we put back select bacteria like lactobacilli, what happens to its blood pressure? Which organs are affected? These fundamental mechanistic questions are to be addressed with the research we do, for which we are funded by the NIH, but we have a long way to go. Okay. Next, so I think there'll be a lot of questions. Typically, when I give a talk, there's a lot more questions because I'm not presenting all the details. But let's take a big picture, what we take out from this room when we go out to understand what we learned today. You know we had the top 10 causes of death, all caused by bacteria. And I hopefully convinced you that we have some published research to indicate that hypertension is a big risk factor. It's caused by these bugs, and they are causing this major illnesses that is eradicating us from the planet. Where do we want to live this? Future research, if we look at our children, our grandchildren on the planet, what does that list look like? Should we even have a list? So, hold on. So the future, here's what we should do. We should at least, from my point of view, I work on hypertension, the first two should be off of this planet. And the opportunity here is to look at this new way of treating hypertension that may lower the risk for the top two killers for our next generations. Okay? This whole story is from a Toledoan. I've been here for 18 years, worked on these projects, come here 8,000 miles away from India. And my people here in the lab and my peers in the scientific world recognize our work for how important it is. My department calls me the chair. The lab folks call me Professor Joe. A journal calls me an editor-in-chief. And a few girls in town call me their dance teacher. And 2 human beings call me, and the guy who's my husband is my backbone, who gets me to go places like here and do the thing that I have to do for the calling that I have to do. So I drive him crazy, but that's part of life. But what I truly appreciate is being here and being given this task to do what is needed, and like it was said before, and then do what's possible, and hopefully the impossible will happen. I love working with my people in the department, and those are the faces of folks that do the heart walks. We had the World Hypertension Day. What is all that meaning? It all comes down to the research we do for trying to improve our lives for the future. Thank you. So I did finish up sooner, so we can talk.
I'll ask you from out there.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm Riaz Chaudhry, General Internist in Toledo. My question is that I keep on reading about processed foods, and people who consume processed foods, they have a higher mortality, high rate of cancer. So what do the processed foods do to the gut bacteria?
Excellent question. My fellow colleague in the department, Dr. Vijay Kumar, works on these processed foods. And a lot of work is reported in the metabolic syndrome area. For example, polysorbate, which is a gooey substance used in a lot of foods, increases body weight of rats. And how that all operates by reducing innate immune work, like the TOL5 receptors. There's too much detail there, but your question is spot on. Processed foods have been the biggest problem as environmental elements that we have used to ruin our gut microbiota. Does it mean that these processed foods are altering blood pressure? Absolutely. Is the data there? Very, very scanty data. So it's like we are at the tip of the iceberg for a lot more literature to surface for how these are very bad. Just last week, there were reports of some of the processed foods and their ingredients really, really doing bad things to the cardiovascular system. So you will see this in popular media more than ever before, that these impact hypertension.
And second, just a comment, I tell my patients to have a cup of yogurt a day, and then they'll keep healthy and live longer.
Yeah. It's very good advice in general. But what we are learning now in terms of our antibiotic study, we learned this, it goes to the realm of precision medicine. Everything that we tell our patients may or may not work for one single patient. So probiotics may work, prebiotics may work, removing salt may work, but on who? And that question is where precision individualized medicine goes, and we are farther away from the truth for how to tweak that for each individual patient. In general, it's a good idea.
Thank you.
2 questions, if I may. I've heard the term essential hypertension, so if you could acquaint us with that a little bit. And then the other part is, what relationship, if any, do you see between the amount and quality of sleep and hypertension?
Okay. The first question, thank you for that one. It's a clarification to make there. Essential sounds like something very essential versus essential hypertension. What do those things, why do those things go together? Essential means idiopathic, meaning for no known cause, if somebody develops hypertension, that is essential hypertension. If somebody has bad kidneys and then they present with hypertension, it's because the kidneys are bad, you know? If the physician has no clue about why a person suddenly at age 30 developed hypertension, that form is called essential hypertension. It came from the Europeans. I think in France, essentiale was the word for idiopathic nature, and then the word in English stuck as essential. The second part, sleep does have a lot of impact on hypertension, and that wasn't studied as much from the bacterial context. What we now are doing studies on is to ask questions, well, bacterial multiplication times are 20 minutes. 20 minutes is one generation, right? And so in 20 minutes spots in each day, how much do bacteria change? So my student is trying to ask the question, well, there's a nice circadian rhythm for blood pressure. It goes low when you sleep and high when you're active. Does it mean that bacteria are also changing along with your circadian rhythm? Which might be a little difficult to understand because they really may impact your blood pressure during night or day if they're changing to tweak that circadian rhythm. So we don't have the data yet for sleep exactly in the terms you're asking us, but I suspect that there will be soon data on that part of it. So you're seeing, really cutting-edge research happening right here in Toledo. So I don't have answers for all your questions. Neither does the scientific community. We are just beginning to break that ground.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm Julia Peklavanos with the Alzheimer's Association. And I wanted to ask you if you're familiar, first of all, with the Sprint Mind study that was released in late 2018 that showed a significant correlation between controlling or managing blood pressure to 120 systolic and the development of number 5 on your list that you showed, which is other dementias along with Alzheimer's, that we now see some evidence that blood pressure also impacts that development of vascular dementia.
Yes. I can only speak to the Sprint trial. I don't know the data for the Alzheimer's part of it, I'm sorry. But the Sprint trial was the key trial that helped us all get a wake-up call for what are we doing to communities as physicians. We are not helping, the physicians are not helping people, telling them that at age 60 or 70 it's okay to not control your blood pressure rigorously because people died. The Sprint trial had to be aborted soon enough to release the data and make sure that people are helped. Now, the standards for the 120 by AT, they vary with different countries. US is where we have come down with 120 by AT. Other countries have their own standards. In fact, there's a new paper that has standards that's coming up with alarming numbers for pediatric hypertension. So children are developing essential hypertension for no reason. They're not obese, they're not, bad eating habits, etc. They're just presenting with high blood pressure. So in just 2 generations from where we had infectious diseases and then a little bit of cardiovascular disease controllable by drugs, we are now looking at children getting affected with this illness. Alzheimer's, dementia, all of those neurological traits, not directly linked to hypertension per se, but there could be associations independently with bacteria. There's a lot of literature that these neurological diseases have associations with bacteria. Yes?
The diagnosis of sleep apnea has exploded over the years, and people have been snoring for hundreds of years. And this has not been a diagnosis associated with it. What's the correlation with hypertension happen as a result of sleep apnea, not using the equipment, or better to use the equipment?
Well, you can repeat that so people.
Okay. So the question is, what's the link between sleep apnea and blood pressure? Whether there's a improved, treatment management with better use of sleep apnea devices. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. So I'm not a sleep researcher, but I'm going to violate HIPAA rules and tell you I'm a patient, and I have sleep apnea and I have hypertension. So from what I have learned using the machine, it works like a charm. It does. So what it means is the amount of oxygen that you are getting when you sleep is not enough for you to have your cardiovascular system function well. So it does help a lot. The question is, does sleep apnea influence bacteria and therefore we get disturbances in hypertension? There are new papers from Texas. One study has indicated that sleep apnea indeed has influences on gut bacteria by itself. So when you're sleeping, if you have a problem, you are then altering your population of bugs in your body, and that you have dysbiosis, that bad germs are there. They somehow release some metabolites into your bloodstream, and you're increasing your blood pressure. Now you can see there are dots there, not very well connected by science. But those dots are good hypothesis for testing for why it helps or hurts high blood pressure. Good question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Bina, for today's great program. To show our appreciation, our Rotary Foundation, Toledo Rotary Foundation, is going to make a donation in your name to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund. And we also have this book about historical tales of Toledo for you. So,
Thank you so much. I'm honored.
next Monday, of course, is Memorial Day, and we will not have a meeting. Please join us when we're back together on Monday, June 3rd, when our speaker will be our youth exchange student, Manuel Carriega, and I'm sure that'll be a great presentation. Following today's program, the Peace Committee will be meeting in the Presque Isle Room. The Vocational Services Committee was supposed to meet right after today's meeting, but that meeting has been canceled. So if you're planning on that, it'll be rescheduled for another time. Jeff, welcome again to Toledo Rotary, and John, thank you for bringing Jeff to us. Marvin, again, congratulations on your Paul Harris Fellow. Ken, thank you so much for being here today to present that to Marvin. I believe past President Chuck Mann has something a little different for us today.
Today is George Goebel's birthday. George was born in 1919 and he passed on in, I believe it was 1991. One of the things he was famous for his appearances on Hollywood Squares. So here are 3 questions that he was asked and his answers on Hollywood Squares. Peter Marshall asked, if the $6 million man and the bionic woman were to have a baby, would it be a bionic baby? George's answer is, yes, but it would require 3 doctors, a ground crew, and a disposable net. Peter Marshall, the Pittsburgh Press calls it a combination of the jitterbug, the cha-cha, and the mambo. What do you call it? George's answer is, a short in my electric blanket. And after I finish with this, I've got a sort of a special thing, so stay tuned. Peter Marshall, true or false? A pea can last as long as 5,000 years. George's answer, sometimes it sure seems that way. We don't do this very often, but we're going to watch a video here for a second. The Carol Burnett Show was a comedy variety show that ran from 1967 to 1978 on CBS, featuring an ensemble cast and weekly guest stars. This is a clip from that show featuring Tim Conway, who left us last week. In this reoccurring Mama's Family sketch, Tim is a part of a group playing Password with the other characters played by Carol Burnett, Vicki Lawrence, and Dick Van Dyke. Carol had gotten word from the director that Tim Conway was planning something, so she warned the other actors to stay in character. Vicki Lawrence did the best and held on till the end when she loses it. And it's a little hard to hear, and there is one word of adult language, so I apologize ahead of time for that. But remember that the beginning of her scene-ending quote is, "Are you sure?" So you have to put "Are you sure?" in front of it. Ladies and gentlemen, the genius of Tim Conway.
I was at this freak show one time, and I saw these Siamese elephants. They was joined at the end. They was joined at the end of their trunks like that. And this trainer would make them stand up on their back feet like that, and it had their trunk stretched like that. Then this little monkey would come out. Walk out there and dance a merengue right out there. I kind of felt sorry for them. They couldn't go like the other elephants when they go. All they could do is just blow and go north. One that sneezes, the other's eyes get real big.
Go on, Mama. Sure that little asshole's through.
Thank you, Chuck. That was Tim Conway, Bowling Green State University graduate. Let's hope you all have a great couple of weeks. Enjoy your Memorial Day. Let's remember to be servants out there so we can continue to be the inspiration. We are adjourned.